Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bedtime Stories. My name is Tracy and I am your host, and we are reading the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, who has been long dead, and so all of his works are in the public domain. We are working on the Knight's Tale, and this is part number 4, and I hope you're cuddled up all snug as a bug in a rug, and let's begin. Great was the feast in Athens on that day, and then besides, the lusty month of May made every living heart so well content that all of Monday, hour by hour, they spent in the pleasures of the tourney, or the dance, or Venus in her holy ordinance. But they went promptly to their rest at night to get up early and witness the great fight. At morning, when the day began to spring, came noise of harness and the clattering of horses in the stables all about, and to the palace ambled many a rout of lords in every sort of finery, goldsmithing rich and strange embroidery. Bright helmets, clanging shields, the armorers go among the bustle, hurrying to and fro. With file and hammer the steed snorts and sidles, and flecks of white foam spatter golden bridles. Yeomen on foot with short staves press along, pipe, trumpet, clarinet, drum skirl through the throng. Such as in battle blow a bloody sound, by threes and tens men choke the palace ground, proving the merits of each rival knight. He looks a fierce one, he's the one to fight. Some held with the black beard, some with the thick hair. Long after sunrise they argued and compared. Wakened by minstrelsy, great Theseus kept within the palace chamber where he slept, till both the knights, honored in equal sort, were brought at length before him to the court. Then Theseus to a window made his way, while people pushed to hear what he might say, and sat like a throned god while a herald cried for silence when he felt the crowd subside, and saw that all the tumult had grown still. The herald thus proclaimed the prince's will. It would be carnage and offense to right, if noble blood in this affair should fight to the mortal finish. Wherefore, lest they die, Prince Theseus has resolved to modify his first intent on forfeit of his life. Let none take missile, battle axe, or knife into the lists, nor short sword by his side. Only a single tilt each knight shall ride, with sharp ground spear against his opposite. Then he may parry on foot if he thinks fit. Whoever is wounded or is overmatched, he shall on no condition be dispatched, but brought to the stake ordained on either side. Thither he shall be dragged, and there abide. And if either of the chief antagonists is taken or slain, all fighting in the lists shall end. The tourney shall no longer last. Godspeed you all, go forth and lay on fast. With long swords and with maces fight your fill. Be on your way. This is your prince's will. Maces are very, very, very dangerous. It's a club with spikes on the end, and they're heavy, and they will cave in a man's skull. Just so you know. I don't know if this prince knows what a mace is. Surely he does, but... The people raised their voice in such a cry, their shout of exultation reached the sky. God bless a prince so kindly and so good, he does not want to see a waste of blood. The pipes began to skirl, the whole throng rolled off through the city hung with cloth of gold. In style the prince took up his reins to ride, these Theban knights, one upon either side. Next after them the queen and Emily, and then by rank came the whole company. They clattered through the city street by street, and reached the lists where Theseus took his seat, high up and richly furnished, with the queen and Emily, the center of the scene, and other ladies round them. Then the throng pushed to their seats and shoved their way along. And Arcite, with his banner rippling red, his 100 knights through the west entrance led. The gate of Mars, while through the eastern gate, Palamon at the same moment rode in state, under the banner of Venus glistening white, leading his equal 100 for the fight. In all the world, in every realm and nation, so balanced, without shade of variation, so matched in prowess, age, and noble birth, two companies were never seen on earth. In two fair lines, drawn up in seemly style, they ranged themselves then to prevent all guile. Their names were read, each one, the gates were barred. The clamor rose, "Lay on, young knights, fight hard!" The heralds gave up riding to and fro, and now loud clarion and trumpet blow. There is no more to say but east and west. In went each spear, set stoutly in its rest. In went the sharp spur to the horse's side. There men saw who knew how to joust and ride. Shafts silver on thick shields, and like a stone, the smote man feels the blow to his breastbone. Up fly the spent spears 20 feet in air. Out swords come, bright as silver in the glare. They hack and hew the helmets to a shred. Blood bursts out, and in sickly streams flows red. They maul men's bones with maces heavy and strong. One cuts a passage in the thickest throng. Steeds stumble under riders, down go all, and underfoot a man rolls like a ball. A knight with truncheon is fighting on his feet. Another hurls a rider from his seat. One through the body hurt, his captors take, and drag him, though he struggles, to the stake. There, as the promise was, he must abide. Another is dragged off from the opposing side. And Theseus halts them now and then for ease, to rest themselves and drink, if they should please. Often that day these Thebians met in fight, and each unhorsed and hurt his fellow knight. No tiger in Gargraphia, robbed by men of the tiny whelp she had hidden in some glen, so cruel on the scent of as Arcite was, to wreak on Palamon his jealous cause. No lion in the wastes of Ben Marin, hunted or mad with hunger, ever was in such thirst of blood, and or tracked his quarry so, as Palamon to slay Arcite his foe. Their sides were bleeding and their helmets hacked, but sometime comes an end to every act. Before the sun sank in the evening breeze, Emetreus, the great king, found means to seize this Palamon who struggled with Arcite, and deep in the flesh he made his long sword bite. Then 20 men lay hold on him and take the unyielding victim with them to the stake. And in the attempt to rescue Palamon, the mighty King Lycurgus is borne down, and King Emetreus for all of his strength, so Palamon hit him to a full sword's length, is lifted from his saddle, but they take Palamon willy-nilly to the stake. His hardy heart can give him no help now. Conquered, he must abide by his own vow. Who grieves but Palamon, no more to fight? The prince, as soon as he has seen this sight, cried out to those who fought, "Ho, it is done! No more, Arcite of Thebes has fairly won. As I am true judge, helping neither side, my sister Emily shall be his bride." The people's clamor swept from wall to wall, with such a joy it seemed the lists would fall. What can fair Venus now do up above? What says the goddess? What does the queen of love? But weep for the wanting of her will, but weep so for the wanting of her will. The lists with brimming tears are like to fill. Truly, she said, I am shamed on every side. Feel that. But Saturn spoke, "Peace, daughter," he replied. "Mars is content, his night has been rewarded. Soon you shall see your own desire accorded. The heralds, the trumpets, and the minstrelry are all in joy for Arcite's victory, but listen, be more quiet while I tell how on the sudden a miracle befell. Taking his helmet off to show his face, this Arcite rode the length of the great place, looking at Emily where she sat up high, and she returned his look with friendly eye. For women, whatsoever taste they savor, speaking in general, follow fortune's favor. And she was all his cheer, and he glad-hearted. Out of the ground a hellish fury started, by Pluto sent, such was old Saturn's plan. For terror of which his frightened horse began to swerve, and then fell foundering in a heap. Quicker than Arcite could recover and keep his seat, he was pitched over on his head, so roughly that he lay there as though dead. His ribs were broken by his saddle bow, and he was as black as coal or as a crow. So rushed the blood to his congested face. Brain injuries. No joke. Quickly they raised and bore him from the place, and took him to the palace deep in gloom. They cut his armor from him, and in a room put him to bed, still clear in memory, and always crying out for Emily. The prince, though this mishap had chanced to fall, had no desire to disappoint them all. Besides, men said Arcite would not die. He would recover from his malady. Another thing they took for a great gain, that no one in the tourney had been slain. As for their hurts and wounds and broken arms, one recommended salves, another charms. And so the prince, whose will was for the best, honored and comforted his every guest. And for the visiting lords, as was but right, conducted revels all the livelong night. 3 days he feasted them, and then attended, while they rode out of town, their mission ended. And every man turned home the shortest way. There was no more but farewell and good day. The breast of Arcite swells, the bitter sore that fills his heart increases more and more. The clotted blood, despite all medical skill, festers, remaining in the tissue still. No cupping nor bloodletting gives him aid, nor any drink of herbs, however made. The venom is past all virtue to expel, the passage of his lungs begins to swell. The poison and the festering congest his every muscle downward through his chest. No measure helps him in his hope to live, upward emetic, downward laxative. All organs in that region are disrupted, and nature there is totally corrupted. When nature leaves the victim in the lurch, doctor, goodbye, go bear the man to church. This is the long and short, Arcite must die. And so he calls at last for Emily and Palamon, and when they had drawn near, these were the words he spoke for them to hear. Nowise the woeful spirit in my heart may speak one point of all my sorrows smart to you, my lady, for I love you most. But I bequeath the service of my ghost to you above all creatures who are cast into this world, since my life may not last. Ah, for the grief, the pains both strong, sharp and strong, that for your sake I suffered, and so long. Alas for death, alas my Emily, alas this parting of our company. Alas, queen of my heart, alas, my wife, my heart's love, and the ender of my life. What is this world? What do men ask to have? Now with his love, now with his cold grave. Now with his love, now in his cold grave. Alone, without a soul for company. Farewell, my lovely foe, my Emily. Now softly take me in your arms and pay, for love of God, good heed to what I say. I have with Palamon, my cousin here, had strife and rancor many a jealous year, for love of you, yet God so pity me, in speaking of a lover, truthfully. For honor, kindred, knighthood, I know none, so worthy to be loved as Palamon, who serves you now and will do all his life. And if you ever should become a wife, forget not Palamon, that worthy man. And with the final word his speech began to fail, the cold of death began to creep from feet to breast with overcoming sleep. The strength ebbed from him till it left no more than thought, with which his heart beat sick and sore. And even thought failed when the heart felt death. His eyes dusked over, and his sinking breath fluttered, and yet it seemed he could still could see his lady. His last word was Emily. His spirit changed its mansion and went there. Where never I was, I cannot tell you where. Theology is past my slim resources. I do not find the soul's fate in my sources. And all those views I do not care to tell. Divines hold on the question where souls dwell. Arcite is cold. Mars take him to his peers. Infinite are the sorrows and the tears of young and old, such weeping never filled. The town of Troy, when Hector newly killed, was carried home. Alas, the pity there, flaying of cheeks and tearing out of hair. With Emily, the shrieking women cry, and gold enough, why did he have to die? No one could comfort Theseus but his old father Aegeus, to whom the world had told the story of its endless transformations. He had seen its ups and downs and its mutations, joys after griefs, griefs after ecstasies, and proffered examples and analogies. Just as no man has ever died, said he, who did not live his life in some degree. Just so no man has lived and eaten bread in all the world, but some day he is dead. This world is but a thoroughfare of woe, and we are pilgrims passing to and fro. Death is the healing of each worldly sore. Of such sort was his comfort, and much more. Theseus, with all his busy care and stir, thought now where they might build the sepulchre. And in the end he was resolved upon the place where both Arcite and Palamon had in their jealous combat first been seen. There in the very grove, pleasant and green, where Arcite had complained of love's hot fire, he meant to burn him on a funeral pyre. He gave command to cut the old oaks low, and lay the wood in billets in a row. Next he procured a bier, and had it dressed in cloth of gold, the richest he possessed. In the same clothing he arrayed Arcite, save that upon his hands were gloves of white, and on his head a wreath of laurel green, and in his hand a sharp sword bright and keen. He laid him, face uncovered, on the bier, and wept so it was pitiable to hear. I guess I'm reading it wrong. It's supposed to be beer. I don't know. I always heard it bier. B-I-E-R, bier. Maybe I'm pronouncing it weird. Maybe Chaucer pronounced it weird. I don't know. Then that he might be seen of one and all, when it was day, he brought him to the hall. There Palamon came, his hair unkempt and slack, sprinkled with ashes, and clad all in black. And wretchedest of that whole company, outweeping all the others, Emily. The foremost of the Greeks, with sorry cheer, high on their shoulders lifted up the bier, and bore it slowly with weeping eyes and red, through the chief street, and where black cloth had been spread. Duke Theseus and Aegeus, grave and old, bore in their hands vessels of finest gold, well filled with honey and milk, with blood and wine. Palamon and with his followers next in line. And after that came Emily, in her hand fire for the rites long practiced in that land, the rich appurtenance of their undertaking, the form and labor of their fire-making. I shall not tell at length the pyre was high, so that its green top seemed to brush the sky. First many loads of straw to catch the flames, then birch, oak, box, ash, trees of many names. Above the straw, elm, linden, chestnut, beech, maple, and thorn to tempt the fire's reach. You will not hear from me how all the trees were felled, nor how the local deities, nymphs, fauns, and hamadryads and the rest ran up and down, scattered and dispossessed, nor how the beasts and woodbirds, one and all, fled terrified when the trunks began to fall, nor how the ground stood all aghast and bright, affronted with the unfamiliar light, nor how Arcite among the garlands lay, the flowers, incense, myrrh, and rich array, how Emily swooned when men had made the fire, nor what she said, nor what was her desire, nor what the gems and weapons that men cast into the fire when it burned high and fast, nor how the Greek knights rode in a huge rout, keeping the fire to leftward thrice about, with loud cries, and thrice more with clanging spears, and thrice the women shrieked above their tears, nor how the ashes of Arcite burned cold, nor how the Greeks all night their wake feast hold, nor how they keep the funeral games appointed, who wrestled best naked, with oil anointed. Read these old books if you have time to spend, for I shall bring my long tale to an end. By lapse and natural process of the years, the Greeks forgot their mourning and their tears. Abandoned by a general consent, then I recall occurred a parliament, that with its other business had in view the obedience that Athenians thought due. From Thebes, and Theseus, thinking of this end, ordered his officers that they should send for Palamon, who came, not knowing why, in black and with sorrow in his eye. The prince called Emily, seated them in place, and when a hush fell, with a thoughtful face, he sighed, and held his peace a moment still, and then he soberly declared his will. The prime mover, when he forged the chain of love that binds us to the cause of things above, great was his purpose, and high was his intent, and in that act he well knew what he meant. For by the means of that fair chain he bound the fire, the air, the water, and the ground, and fixed the limits they may not exceed, that same prince and first mover has decreed. To all life in this wretched world below, a day beyond which none of us may go. Although we may abridge our natural term, this truth we need no learning to confirm. Experience proves it, and I cite it here, only to make my resolution clear. Thus, by the order of things men comprehend, this mover suffers neither change nor end. For any man, unless he is a fool, knows well that every part comes from the whole. For nature did not take its origin from part or parcel, but all things begin with what is perfect and immutable, and thence descending grow corruptible. Thus, by his ordinance, in wide progression, species of all sorts live but in succession, and not eternally. This is no lie, as anyone can see with his own eye. Consider the oak, so long a nourishing, from when the acorn first sprang to spring, and with so long a life, as we may see, yet withered in the end is this great tree. Consider how the stone we tread each day is wasting, as it lies there in the way. The broadest river time at last will drain, and cities that wax great at length will wane. So you may see that all things have an end, thus man and woman also, foe and friend. In either term, in youth or else in age, must die, the king as truly as the page. One in his bed, and one in the deep sea, one in the open field, their ends agree. There is no help, we go the common way. All things must die, but it is but truth to say. It cannot profit any soul alive against this everlasting law to strive. Thus it is wisdom, as it seems to me, to make a virtue of necessity, and take that well which we cannot eschew, and more so as it is our common due. Whoever grumbles, he takes folly's side, and is a rebel to the world's great guide. And certainly a man is honored most, if in his flower he gives up the ghost. When steadfast and secure in his good name, he spares himself and all his friends from shame. His friends should be more grateful for his death, when in full honor he gives up his breath, than when old age has made his prowess pale, and all his honors a forgotten tale. The opposite doctrine is but willfulness. Why do we grumble? Why this heaviness? Because good Arcite, in his highest hour, took leave, with all his honors, in full flower, out of the dreary prison of this life. Why grumble here his cousin and his wife about his welfare, who loved them so well? Can Arcite thank them? God in his wisdom tell. His soul and themselves also they offend, and yet their lusts and whims they cannot mend. What is the gist of this long argument, but that for woe I counsel merriment, and that we thank great Jove for all his grace? And so before departing from this place, I urge that from two sorrows long and sore we make one perfect joy forevermore. Consider, where grief struck most deeply in, that is the point at which we shall begin. Sister, he said, this is my full intent, with all the advice here of my parliament. This gentle Palamon, your own true knight, who serves you with his will and heart and might, and ever has since first he saw your face, you shall take pity on him in your grace. Accept him for your husband and your lord. Lend me your hand, we all are in accord. Show us what womanly pity you have to give. What, the man is a king's nephew, as I live. But were he a knight with nothing but his gear, since he has served you now this many a year, and borne for you so great adversity, you should consider that it seems to me justice by noble mercy is outshone. Then Theseus turned to mighty Palamon. I fancy it will take but little prayer to settle your consent to this affair. Come near and take your lady by the hand. And so their marriage was agreed and planned, in the full presence of the Parliament, and by their counsel and encouragement. Thus, after his long trial, joyously has Palamon at last gained Emily. And God, who all this breadth of world has wrought, send him the love that he has dearly bought. Now all is for the best with Palamon, in health, in wealth, his stint of sorrow done. For Emily loves him with such tenderness, and he serves her with such a gentleness. No word of jealousy can intervene to grieve them, nor suspicion come between. I have told how Palamon won Emily. Now God save all this excellent company. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And if they do, bite them back. I love you.